All right, so good evening and welcome to the February 24th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We will do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. And we've all heard what happened out in California with the school board, so be extra careful what you say. Chair recognizes the attendance and ongoing assistance of all our staff members, Jen, Kevin, Alyssa, Mark, Amy, and Susan. We recognize the attendance of all our commissioners except for Mr. Gurney. I believe he will not be in attendance tonight. We still have 7, so we're good. And I'll remind you that for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time so we don't speak over each other, and that votes, excuse me, will be done by roll call. When I call your name, please state your name and your vote, even if you made the motion or the second. To our public participants, there will be an opportunity for public comment for each hearing. If you'd like to comment on a particular hearing, you may submit any comments or questions via the chat function once that hearing has been opened. At the appropriate time, I will call for public comments, and any submissions will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are posted on the agenda. First up tonight, vote minutes, February 10th, 2021. Anybody? I mean, we don't want to do it. Who did we lose?
We lost Courtney.
Courtney. He always moves it.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Said that. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept as offered. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is almost unanimous. Courtney, did you get that?
No, I didn't. I missed that one. My internet hiccuped.
Okay, here's the minute, so we excluded you. Next up, requests for determination of applicability. First up, Joseph Celia, trustee, 10 Grove Street, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct and maintain an addition, remove an existing deck, install a patio, to trench for electrical, and to install a dry well. Mr. Newton.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. If I could, I'm just going to remind you guys, I'm taking the vote alphabetically. Just makes it easier and clearer that on the record that everybody's voted, just so you know. It's not a favoritism thing to Betsy. Next up, Robert Graham, 31 Hamilton Street, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a second-story addition. Mr. Newton.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Jared Steele, 92 Meredith Lane, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove a patio and steps to construct a deck and to construct a portico. Mr. Newton?
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
And Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Timothy and Betsy Dolan, 5 Hawthorne Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a 13 by 8-foot addition. Mr. Newton?
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Not
Yeah.
here.
Sorry, my line didn't go across that. Maury?
More. Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, John and Nancy O'Brien, 49 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove the existing deck and to construct a new, slightly larger deck. Mr. Newton?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Kristy A Fails, trustee of the Clinton Avenue Realty Trust, 189 Clinton Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to repair and maintain an existing seawall. Mr. Newton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource
Bird, so
area
move.
boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird,
Carlo
so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Carol Pierce, trustee of the 55 Church Street Realty Trust, 55 Church Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to repair existing licensed riprap by placing trap rock to fill voids and to repoint a vertical wall on the north side of the pier. Mr. Newton?
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until March 10th.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this RDA until March 10th. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
And Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. This RDA is continued until March 10th. Next up, Lenore Fitas, 150 Birch Lane, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to upgrade the existing septic system to a Title V subsurface sewage disposal system. Mr. Newton?
The chairman staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
and Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Henry and Winifred Dick, 392 Boxbury Hill Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a 115-foot rock wall and a set of stairs. Mr. Newton.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. And resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up are requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, Elizabeth D Lavka, trustee, Dogwood Realty Trust, 69 Barneck Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconfigure an existing driveway, reconstruct the existing stone breakwater, and modify the landscape. Jen?
Sorry. Yes, Mr. Chairman, Holmes and McGrath has asked us to table this until till approximately 7:45. They're at another hearing right now. I know
All
Dan
right,
has said that he could present, but Tim Santos just texted me and said he would prefer if we skipped one and then came back to them.
I make a motion to table.
Gladfelter,
Carlo Hawk.
second.
all right. We have a motion and a second to table this hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
and Steve.
Patton, aye.
All right, this hearing is tabled. Therefore, next up, Matthew and Susan Dempsey, 172 Antler Shore Drive, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove a deck and stairs, to construct a front entry and walkway, to repair an existing stone revetment, to reconfigure the driveway, and to expand a porch. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just promoted Wayne Tavares up as a panelist to present his project. Wayne?
Excellent.
Mm,
Mr. Tavares, whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Doesn't
do
look
not
like
see you.
See me? I'm sorry.
Hit the video camera button.
Mm. Oh, there we go.
There you are.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a project, and we have a new owner from Rhode Island who bought a house in Antler Shores. We're working in the Falmouth A zone. Looks like a complicated project, but we managed to balance the removals of coverage with new coverage. So without further ado, I'd like to bring the plan up and speak to it.
Please do.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, we're dealing with the Falmouth A zone up to about this point. All the work is in this area. It's a very unusual site, and we have some administrative problems with regard to property lines and so forth, which I'll go into later, or maybe Jennifer will run into them. This was developed many years ago in the 60s. This rock wall was built at the same time in the 60s, so I'm going to start from Eel Pond and work my way in. So there's a couple steps, there's a number of steps that came with it, and there's this rubble that exists down at the waterfront. For what purpose, we have no idea. What the owner would like to do is everything that is marked in magenta, the color magenta, is to be removed. So part of the driveway is to be removed. This deck is to be removed. I'm going to have to get into that later because it was removed. And we have a walkway, a sidewalk here that was all concrete and it's hatched in magenta. That was removed. So these are the credits that we're looking for in area. And we have a table up in this area that shows the credit for items removed and what they were replaced with. So we've balanced it pretty close. We probably have a 17 square foot credit to what we're doing. So the side entrance, the owner did not want the side entrance into this house. He wanted a front entrance. So the front entrance hasn't been built, but the door has been made. He did get a building permit to work inside the house. There's a bone of contention coming up here, but this front stoop would be built according to the on this conservation permit. Front walk to the driveway turnaround would be done. This here where my row is the old turnaround. We're trading the removal of the old turnaround because it was so close to the house to a turnaround a little farther away, area for area. So we have a walkway, a front stoop, and a turnaround all balanced in the equation. Everything in red is new. So this is in red, that's new. Also, it's an awkward alcove area that goes underneath this house. And to reach it, the steps are very poor. I don't have a close-up of those steps. They're in this area of this picture, right in through this area, and they're poor. So we're going to make stadium steps. In other words, about 6 feet across in this area. 10 square feet is what they add to the existing area. They're currently now about 3 feet wide. This is a stone wall or concrete wall, excuse me, that is at the same elevation as the alcove, which is sunken. My owner would like to fill this in here, the back with block, fill this in and turn this into a patio. Right now it exists as this right here. Can you see existing covered where the boat is put? And it's wood covered. It's got a little weird extension out on this side. And these are the steps. We're going to look at this in a second too, the steps in an existing deck that's here. So we're just trading off something that has been covered with something a little bit different, which would be an in-ground patio. Then over here, we're converting these steps that come down at that angle, and we're turning them sideways to go over the previously covered area and to allow this deck to expand into this area. Doesn't come any closer to the top of the coastal bank. Top of the coastal bank's closest proximity to any structure is this one right here, 7.67 square feet. So all the other areas and so forth, you can see I put them here, 10.74, 13.34, etc. Now, sideline to sideline, we have no problems with ZBA or zoning bylaws. However, when the house was built, it was built to cross over a property line. This area right here is owned or will be owned by my owner shortly. He's agreed to talk with the Baker estate, not talk, but he has a purchase and sales agreement, which Jennifer has, to buy all the waterfront for 7 lots going up to the north side over here and 1 lot over here. So he's buying all the adjacent waterfront property that the Baker estate owned. He also bought this lot here, 180. This is a non-buildable lot. And he just bought it because it was non-buildable and the owner is getting along in age. So he's purchased this property, 180, and all the shoreline property. Now, the purchase and sales agreement is a good start on getting this rectified here at this property line. But according to Rod Palmer, and you probably hear it from Jennifer now, nothing in this area can be done until this line gets erased. So with the purchase is going to come a new survey. With that new survey, this comes along. We're trying to get the heavy lifting of conservation sort of out of the way to make room for hopefully the light lifting of the administrative work of making this lot secluded. According to my owner, what he would like to do, or his lawyer has recommended, is to take this lot 180, add the adjacent portion of the perimeter, we'll call it the perimeter lots, to this. So this makes it a whole lot. And in doing so, the lot we're talking about today will do the same thing. This lot line here will extend down to mean high water. This lot line will extend down to mean high water, or the best way that the surveyor describes the limits of the property. So this will all become one. Why we're here is the owner owns it. He's doing some work and he got a little ahead of himself. So let me just try to explain the rest. Very simply, it's all in the A zone. Very simply, we have balanced the replacement items here in this table with a credit of structures removed. We've also been in the green area along the top of the coastal bank. We volunteered some plants. There's no mitigation planting required here. So above the wall is planting 172 square feet. And under these pitch pines that exist here, none of the trees are coming down. We're adding an understory of vegetation to it. So 590 square feet. And Alyssa, who's been in charge of this job, has a balance of the plants, or a plant list that's going in here. I think it's 37 different types of plants, 7 different varieties, from viburnum to blueberry to Virginia rose, as I remember it, beach plum, bayberry, etc., all in this area. Now, it's all in the A zone. Simply, I've discussed all this. I do have a cross section here. We're maintaining the asphalt driveway that exists here. It's very steep in the beginning. So we're keeping the asphalt all the way down here. We thought if we foreshortened it and pushed the asphalt a little further away from the wetland, that was a good start. And at the same time, we're trying to catch the water that's down here. And in turning this, removing this asphalt, we're putting a bump in through this area with, as the cross section shows, a structure underneath, a drainage fabric underneath that'll pick up and gather the water like a catch basin on the surface. So no water will leak beyond this. It'll just sort of saturate into this lawn as it breaks out of this area. It's not catching water, it's slowing down water. And in the future, I maybe shouldn't mention this, Jennifer brought it up. It is possible we could convert this into concrete pavers, which doesn't take up any area, again, so that they can use this as parking, and it does do the same job as this description that I've done here. Right now, let's just go with what I've given you so I don't confuse the issue. A couple of things. The owner had told me that he got a building permit and that he was working inside the house. So every time that I visited here, except for the time when I staked this property out for your viewing, I noticed that the deck was removed. That should not have been done. Contractors being what they are, warning people what you're going to do, putting up a sign that says, "Don't you dare touch this deck." Contractors get ahead of themselves. So been working in the house while I was there on every other occasion until I staked out this house. So I hope you can forgive the owner for removing this deck ahead of time. So he's done this, and at the same time, one day I turned in the driveway and I saw this whole front end entrance torn up. And he apparently got a Title V permit to put in an upgraded septic system, which goes hand in hand with a house that's 50 years old. So he's put this in, and it surprised me, and I know I surprised Jennifer with it. So barring anything else, this is a fairly straightforward, not simple, but straightforward project that includes nice amenities for a new house, changes things, does not hurt anything conservation-wise, but we do have a lot of administrative survey work and cleanup to do. I know a couple of commissioners will say, "Oh, why didn't this wait for later?" Sometimes these issues of land conversion and changes and so forth take 2-3 years down the road. We probably won't be able to do this part of the deck. We don't know, because the building inspector has said, no, nothing can be done on this property without this line going away. So I'm sure the owner is going to work with the surveyor as quickly as he can to convert this over. But we figured we do what I said earlier, the heavy lifting of working this out. So outside of that, I think I'm done. Oh, one more thing. There is a wall that was built 50 years ago. They did a nice job. It's wouldn't be allowed today, I doubt it, but it's all this kind of fieldstone rubble, not a fancy wall, but a lot of concrete in it. And believe it or not, that it's held well, very well. However, there's one blow up right in this area in here. So we're asking on the same permit to repair this in kind. We don't need engineering on it. We know this wall is the way it's intact over 50 years, it's going to hold another 50 years. We'll all be gone before this wall falls down. He does not want to rebuild it other than to fix this, repair this wall. I do this type of work, and I can tell you that the masons will tear this down this way, infill this, and build it in kind with the same filter fabric and backing stone that you use in here. Same sort of stone, same type of concrete, nothing different. Built in kind, no special other attention. So hopefully I've explained the whole project, and if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. The owner is here too, I believe. If you can forward him up, Jennifer, he may want to address some issues. Matt, are you here? Is there a Matt Dempsey? There, Jennifer.
Not up on the participants, so he's not going to respond.
I'm
He
pulling
has
him
to
up
be in
right
the
now.
chat.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Wayne, if you would stop sharing,
Oh,
please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dempsey, do you have anything to add at this time?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. It looks like my video is a bit distorted. I apologize for that. I am a Rhode Island resident. I am an environmental engineer by trade from RPI. Conservation is a passion of mine. When our family located 172 Antlers, we immediately fell in love with it. The adjoining property, or the abutting property, 180 Antlers, has been sitting in a trust for 20-something years, and no one's honestly really been taking care of it. So when we saw an opportunity to purchase that property, we jumped on it. And it wasn't until we did our surveying that we realized that the seawall that we're requesting to repair actually sits in another trust, which now I have under a purchase and sales. So what I plan to do is certainly try to repair our seawall. I have no really interest in owning the waterfront north of our property. Hopefully I can work something out with those property owners where they can retain their waterfront. But, the goal is really for me and my family to be a steward for this entire area. And unfortunately, As you go down the landing, the boat landing to the left, it's been a bit of honestly, a dumping ground for kayaks and docks and blocks, and I can see it, and it really needs a bit of a cleanup. So after I do close on 180, check that, I'm sorry, 0 antlers, my goal is to reach out to the association to give those whoever owns those kayaks and docks an opportunity to remove those. But after that, really be a steward to make sure that someone is watching out for the best interest of that property there. I hired local contractors to do our septic system. The name of the company was B&B Excavation. I had thought that they worked through the proper regulatory authorities to get approvals. Apparently, conservation was one of those approvals that they did not get. I'm finding out in hindsight. My general contractor applied for a building permit, which included moving the front deck, same exact size, not expanding the size of the deck. He received the building permit. Again, he should have received conservation approval, but he received the building permit. So by no means have I tried to pull the wool over the eyes of anyone on this board here. I want to fully comply with whatever jurisdictional requirements there are. This is a really pristine piece of property at the end of Antler Shore. And, I look forward to working with this group to try to cure any default that is in place, but at the same time, try to make the proper improvements that we need for the property.
All right. Thank you, sir. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll address the aspects of the proposed project, and then I'll go back and address the other issues on the property. So we've been working with Wayne for quite a while on this. I think we have gotten to a point where the staff is comfortable with the proposed work, the work that's being proposed. We've met a couple of different times with Wayne on Zoom and have talked over different aspects of his project. You can see in the revised staff report, a number of the questions we have been addressed or resolved. So we're happy with that. So unless Kevin has any additional questions on the proposed project, I think staff is pretty much satisfied with the way the proposal has come out. On the outstanding work, a building permit was pulled for interior work only. It was not pulled to remove that deck. So that is not correct. It was for interior work. We kind of raised the issues of some very large oak trees being removed in the A zone in the front of the house. And when I say A zone, I mean the flood zone, A zone of the flood zone. And that is when we discovered that there was some recent septic work. The work did not go through the Board of Health. It was approved at the staff level because of certain provisions and regulations in Title V. I've spoken to the health department about that, and we're taking steps to address that. It was a company, I believe, the surveyor or the engineer on that was from Yarmouth. I did call them and ask them to give me a call so we could discuss it. So they're aware that when they are in a flood zone in the town of Falmouth, they do need to file for a septic upgrade with us. I have not heard back, and I made that call yesterday or Monday. So as far as the ownership of the lot along the salt marsh where the deck crosses, right now it's under the Harold Baker estate. I know longtime members of this board remember the Baker estate on some other projects that we had involving the docks. I do have a copy of the purchase and sale. So the Wetlands Protection Act says you either have to have control of the property or the owner's permission to do work on that property. And we do have a purchase and sale from the Baker estate to the Dempseys for this property. The way the plan is drawn, according to the building commissioner, if you give me 1 second, I can pull up. Just had it up here and I was looking for something else. As drawn, the building commissioner will not approve the construction of the decks as it's currently drawn. The applicant had the choice to either seek zoning relief for that in order to get a building permit as the plan is drawn, or as the building commissioner explains it to me, and I'm going to read this because I wrote this email right after I talked to him. In order to obtain a building permit, the applicant will have to produce what is referred to an 81X perimeter plan, eliminating the back lot line, and that is regardless of ownership. So it doesn't matter if both parties if one party owns both properties, that back lot line has to be removed before Rod will sign off on a building permit. The 81X must be prepared by a professional land surveyor. A new deed will need to be drafted with the new dimensions of the lot. And he did say why most people seek planning board approval under an A&R process for this 81X plan, it's actually not required, and that it just needs to be recorded at the registry of deeds. So until the surveyor does their work and the back lot line is eliminated, the applicant cannot obtain a building permit as it's currently drawn. So again, we do have a purchase and sale that should satisfy the ownership question for the commission, but that is really up to you as to, you do need written permission from the owner to go forward. And the zoning aspect of it, because it would trip zoning and you have to apply for all obtainable permits. Again, as drawn, the applicant cannot obtain a building permit. So I hope that kind of answered some outstanding questions for the commission. If you have any questions for us, we'll be happy to answer them.
If I can just jump in, I just don't want to confuse this link in the two decks. One is the rear deck, which touches that back boundary line, and the other is the front deck.
No,
So,
I understand.
okay.
The
Mr.
building
Newton, do you have
permit was
anything?
for interior.
Mr.
What was
Chairman,
that, Jamie?
thank you. I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. Ms. Lincoln, do you have something?
No, I just thought you were asking a question. Sorry.
All right,
Pat has her hand raised, Jamie, if you can't see her.
I can see her.
Okay.
Pat?
I noticed in the staff report, a comment that there weren't any plans submitted with the application that were stamped by a surveyor. Have you received such a plan yet?
I can address that. I'm picking up that plan tomorrow. I've been in touch with the surveyor who did provide the base plan for this, and he is stamping 2 additional plans with my stamp on it. So we'll have double stamp, and you shall have them tomorrow afternoon. But thanks for asking. Forgot about that.
Nothing else, Mr. Chair?
All right. Peter?
No questions.
Steve?
No questions. Thank you. Seems like we have to come back.
Yes, it does. Betsy? Courtney?
Oh, Courtney needed to reboot. He must not be back on. He was having internet connection troubles.
Okay. Kevin O'Brien?
No questions, although it seems as though I should have a lot of questions, but it seems as though they have to go through some more steps before we can really look into this.
All right. Maury?
We do need the PLS stamp, and also, I don't see the Falmouth 25-foot V zone on this. Am I missing it?
It is there, Maury. I
Oh,
didn't,
it is? Okay, thank you.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I do see it. I'm sorry. No, I saw the flood zone line. All right, that said, I know they're gonna be coming back, and I really think we need way more detail on that little fix on that wall. They're not just gonna clean it up and patch it together and throw some cement in there. That's directly in the salt marsh, and I would like to know how they are removing it, how they're gonna have access to it, how they're gonna stage out onto the salt marsh. And, yeah, I just think that needs a little more detail. And, is Eel Pond land containing shellfish?
yeah, I'm sure.
I'm
Eel
sure it
Pond-
is. All right, we need that on the plan that it says land containing shellfish. And I actually wasn't even going to speak because I feel that without the ownership of this land, we're making a discussion on property that they don't even own. And until they do that, I'm not comfortable making other determinations. Thank you.
All right.
Maury, would you be comfortable if you're not comfortable with the PLS, would you be comfortable with a letter from because I have a signed PNS, I can show it to you.
Yeah, but a signed PNS can go south.
Okay, and that's fine. So would you prefer because you can vote if you have written permission from the other property owner. So would that satisfy you?
That would be better than a purchase and sales because this could not happen. I mean, things happen.
Okay.
I just feel that I know that Wayne's trying to do the heavy lifting, but I feel that they're a little premature, that there was a lot of heavy lifting on the other end before it came to us.
Nope, and this was discussed.
And first floor elevation on the house.
Can I address the wall issue? If Maury would like, I can provide a narrative for the wall construction, but basically working on a salt marsh is very difficult. We'd take the wall down from the top up, but we need to put scaffolding over that salt marsh in order to work with scaffolding so that we can put the bottom stones in. And as I mentioned, my family's done that for years. I've done it for years. We put the same stones in, same technique, same backing, all of that would work, but I'm happy to put it in a narrative form, and it's doing in kind. So we don't want to do a wall that's better than the existing wall. It has to be in kind, but not worse either. So I can do a narrative for you. Drawing a picture for a wall like that is kind of silly because it's guts out. You can see it as it is. So we will have to get new stone, same type of round field stone to go in there. The cement is important. The bottom stones are very critical, and we don't want to damage the salt marsh. So we will work from the top up to remove the wall, and then from across the salt marsh just to begin the bottom of the wall on scaffolding, and then we'll finish it from the top. So I hope that's a verbal explanation.
Yeah, I think the narrative would be very helpful because whoever's working on it needs to know what they're required to do.
That would be me. So,
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
No.
All right, Wayne, what are you thinking?
Thinking in the terms of, I'm sorry, I'm missing that. Jamie.
I think, Wayne, he wants to know how long you would need a continuance for. And I think you've heard that some of the board members don't feel incredibly comfortable with the PNS, which was always a possibility. we discussed that, so you'll need to go back to the Baker estate and just obtain written permission that you have permission to work on their property.
In
And
lieu.
then the narrative for the the work in the salt marsh.
Okay, yeah, I can provide that within 2 or 3
And the
days.
PLS stamp plans, I'm sorry, Wayne.
Yeah, and then we can talk to Stephen and his brothers about permission in lieu of the P&S. P&S will take some time, and the owner wouldn't want to wait for that kind of time. So the permission is a good response, and I'll do the narrative for the wall. Is there anything else? But we'd certainly like to close the hearing if we could, or get a vote on the hearing, or do you want to continue?
They're not going to close a hearing
No,
without permission from the property owner. And as they said, they're uncomfortable with that. So we need the narrative on the salt marsh, on the work in the salt marsh. You just said you were putting scaffolding in the salt marsh. So I would include how you're going to mat the salt marsh to protect it. And then with the Baker estate, this board will not close a hearing without permission from the property owner. If they're not going to accept the P&S, then we need written permission from the Baker estate.
Okay, so Jamie, you were asking for a continuance, is that what you're saying?
no, well, I'm asking you what you would like. You have to formally request the continuance.
Okay,
And
well,
then-
we'd like to, Matt, you and I both have spoken with the Bakers, so.
Yeah,
you think-
Wayne, if I can, Stephen has been extremely cooperative. I plan on being back there on Friday. I'm sure I can get him to sign that approval letter on Friday and get it to you. So, he's been quiet for 25 years, but all of a sudden he's very anxious to close on this property. So I'll draft up a letter and get it to you on Friday.
Okay, good to hear. All right, fine, and I'll provide my narrative for the wall reconstruction by Monday, no later. So we should have everything Monday, maybe, but we're requiring a third party to act with us, so we don't know that part of it. So we're trying.
And Wayne, our next available hearing would be the 24th of March. This board isn't meeting on the 17th, and I'm not sure you'll have everything for the 10th. I'm not here next week to evaluate the documents when they come in. So the next available hearing would be the 24th.
Okay, and I'm sorry, why not the 10th? Why? I missed that.
Because the board likes their information in a week in advance, and you're providing a number of pieces of information, including permission, and we already had a discussion on the permission. You remember how that went? So I will not be available next week to look at the documents and make sure everything is correct and that this board will accept it.
Okay.
I am out of the office, so I will not be available until the week after, and they do not have a hearing on the 17th.
Okay, I'm sorry I had to run you through that
Hearing is
twice.
24th.
My fault. Okay, the 24th. Sure.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue to March 24th.
Harlow Hawk second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until March 24th. Wayne, are you clear what we're looking for?
Absolutely, sure, thank you.
Excellent. All right. No further ado, I'm gonna call for the vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney. Oh, Courtney's not in, right?
Yeah,
No,
I'm
he's
not on
back
this.
now.
All right, but you missed too much of it, correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right. All right, Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawk's aye.
Pat,
RSI.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
All right, this hearing is continued until March 24th. Thank you, Mr. Tavares. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Dempsey.
you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, board. Appreciate
Have a good
your
night.
help.
Thank
I
you.
know.
Hey, Tim's joined us.
Yeah. All right, so we will, we'll need a motion and a second to untable 69 Barneck Road.
I make a motion on table Harlow Hawks.
I second Gladfelter.
All right. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawk's aye.
Pat,
Harrison,
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
All right, so that brings us back to Elizabeth D Lavka, trustee, Dogwood Realty Trust, 69 Barneck Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to reconfigure an existing driveway, reconstruct the existing stone breakwater, and modify the landscape. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Tim Santos from Homes and McGrath and Dan Celine up to present the project. Sorry, Dan, I thought you saw my chat when I said, did you want to present without Tim? So I was texting Tim at the same time. So I apologize.
No problem. No problem at all.
I'm trying to do everything here.
I'm sure it's not easy.
All right, Mr. Santos, you're up.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Homes and McGrath, representing the applicant along with Dan Celine. I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
All right, excellent. Again, for the record, Tim Santos from Homes and McGrath, representing the applicant. The property is located at 69 Barneck Road. The resource areas on and within 100 feet of the property are a coastal dune on the northern side of the house, as well as a coastal dune on the southern side of Barneck Road, coastal beach, and a coastal beach on the southern side. And then on the northern side, we have Buzzards Bay, land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. And on the southern side, we also have land under the ocean and land containing shellfish for the Great Harbor. This property was before you back in 2014, I believe, at which time there was an order of conditions issued to do some modifications to the existing home. And the compliance was issued in 2017 for that. We are back here tonight, and I'm going to zoom in. We're back here tonight to do some modifications to the driveway and some hardscape and some landscaping. And Dan will get into more of that with his plan, but I'm quickly kind of just going to review it on our colored plan here. On this western side of the property up the front, there's an existing driveway. We're proposing to remove it and locate it to the eastern side. And we're also proposing some landscape beds where there currently is lawn. And along this southwestern corner here, there's an existing mitigation from the original order. And we are proposing to kind of reconfigure that mitigation as well as augment it. It's about 144 square feet, I believe, that exists from the original order. And we are adding 160 square feet into that. So there'll be it'll be augmented to 160 square feet. The staff report asked, and I'll kind of go to it, for us to provide our calculations on how we came up with the net zero for the potential increase in impervious surfaces under the redevelopment. These square dashes are the existing pavers. And then we have the existing pavers on the northern side of the breakaway and the existing driveway. The dark lines are the proposed pavers from Dan's landscape plan, as well as the new paved driveway, which we have also provided drainage for. So as you can see from that calculation, there's actually a decrease of I think about 20 square feet. So there is a no net increase there on that. And then staff report also requested that we add the resource areas to the south side of Barneck Road on a revised plan. We've done that, and I spoke with Jen this morning and felt it was best to wait to turn that plan in case any of the board members wanted additional revisions to our Homes and McGrath plan. So that's my quick spiel, and I'll stop sharing, turn it over to Dan so he can go through the landscape and hardscape portion of the project.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Celine, you're up.
Okay, thank you. So I'll try to figure out how to share a screen here. see here. Okay. Well, to start with, I just wanted to share a few pictures, which will help you understand things. So this is 69 Barnack Road. You can see here that there is a breakwater that really traverses not only 69, but also the property to the east. The work that you see here is on the property to the east, but it's sort of indicative of the challenge presented by this breakwater. Apparently, and I haven't talked to anybody about this, but apparently they're trying to control weed growth, bittersweet and other noxious weeds that grow in this breakwater. So this is the current, front walk. At some point in the past, the breakwater was sort of mortared, together at this point in order to make it navigable to the front door. This is the existing parking. You can see the weed growth in the breakwater, and the parking, in the front yard. And really the effort here, really what has driven this project is to sort of beautify the property by relocating the parking area so that it's not right in front of the house, and to improve the landscaping. I mean, this is a view of Great Harbor, and it's unfortunate, that the view from the rear or the south terrace is sort of impacted by these parking spaces. So that's really what has inspired the project. This is a breakwater. It's really rough. I'm not sure. I think it was constructed originally back around the turn of the century. The last century, and it really is a means to protect what was at the time, I believe, a travelway that was north of the breakwater that provided access to Penzance. But since then, the travelway has been constructed upon by the architecture. So here we have essentially the breakwater. It has a reveal on one side, and it's sort of flush with the lawn on the other. So this is these are the steppers that Tim mentioned that are coming out and will simply be replaced by lawn in this west side yard. Across the road, we're looking to remove the existing concrete posts and rail fencing here, and replace it with cedar posts and or rather granite posts with cedar rails, and then also to do some additional planting of beach grass along the fence line. So that is also a relic of history. And this is the path to the beach. You see how the existing rail, sort of terminates at each side of the path to that beach. Let's see. Okay, so now. Fortunately, unfortunately, my drawing isn't showing up in that folder. So let me see if I can pull it off a zip drive or a memory stick. Don't know why that is happening.
What are you looking for, Dan?
Well, I prepared a colored plan of the garden, and that was in this folder, and for some reason I don't understand. It's not showing up.
Hang
Hey,
on.
yeah.
let's see.
Tim, I emailed it to you earlier. Can you pull it up?
I'm not at my office. I have your
Oh.
plan, though. I can pull your plan up.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be fine.
Let's
All
go
right,
with that.
If you,
Let me,
if you stop sharing, I can get to it, I think.
okay. I'm sorry about that.
One dated February 2nd. I have it up already. Oh, Tim's got it. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, okay. Tim, why don't you zoom in on the front yard?
Does that work, or you want it a little closer?
A little bit closer could work.
Show off.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, I have this lovely colored drawing to share with you, but in any case, so the driveway, would be composed of a cobbled, apron. The driveway surface would be exposed aggregate, concrete with cobbled edging. To the side of the driveway on each side is a lawn area that would be reinforced below grade with a geotextile to support occasional, parking on those lawn surfaces. So we're proposing to essentially repoint, I guess, would maybe be one way to look at it. We're going to dismantle the breakwater across the property and to reconstruct it, so that it is a walkable surface. We're going to use the same stone. We're going to match the stone where necessary with similar stone of similar origin and character, simply so that the breakwater can be used as a means to to circulate from the cars to the front door, and that you can cross it or to exit via the garden to the beach path across the road. So essentially, we'll dismantle and then reconstruct the breakwater with the same stone plus, and so that the surface is just walkable. It'll continue to be permeable. We're not going to be using any concrete in that process. In fact, what we'd like to do is plant the joints, and so that we can move the issue in a little bit of the direction of a garden path, albeit 8 feet wide. So flanking, then from that breakwater, we have a path, some steppers that lead through a garden bed to the side of the front porch, and then another walk that leads from the front porch across the breakwater and out to Barnick Road. The planting beds. Well, let me just say that this is the mitigation, area on the west edge of the landscape, which lies to the south of the breakwater. As Tim mentioned, that's a mitigation area that was required previously. We're going to just rearrange the plants and add to them so that we can, create a bed line that will, form one edge of a little garden room. So the planting beds where you see them, I won't go into the specific plants. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them. But essentially, we're using a very hardy array of ornamental plants, perennials and grasses, sedum, and in order to create a garden that can be cared for without irrigation. This property won't be irrigated, so the plantings might be temporarily irrigated and then hand watered by the gardeners through the season. I guess what's not, maybe if you pan down, Tim, I can see the work across the road where we're essentially replacing the concrete and metal, fence system with a granite post and wood rail system of similar length and location. So why don't I leave it there and try to answer any questions you have.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Ben, do you want to begin?
Yes, Dan, can you explain, because we were kind of looking at, I think, staff did, Alyssa and Kevin did a great job, evaluating the project, but one question we had, and you just kind of caught me off guard, was Tim's plan says you're going to be reconstructing the breakwater per the landscape plan. And then all the landscape plan says is that you're provide planting pockets at the joint intersections of the breakwater. So now, and then it doesn't say anything in the planting notes I saw about reconstructing the wall. So are you taking the whole wall down and rebuilding it, or?
Well, don't really consider it a wall.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I mean, just, it's so irregular, that it's, hazardous, frankly, for any, sort of pedestrian activity around it or over it. So the idea is to take it apart, essentially stockpile the material nearby on the lawn and then, reassemble it, in a manner that provides a more level surface. There'll be probably some crushed rock, bedding, involved that will just enable the stones to be leveled and yet remain stable. But and some geotextile and then of course some planting soil in order to attempt to grow some creeping thyme. I do have details. I'm happy to deliver details to you for that. I did not include this in the submittal, but if you'd like to see construction details, I'm happy to share those.
That would be helpful, Dan, next time if you could submit those and maybe kind of expand on your plan, how that's going to be done. Because we were just, Alyssa and I were looking at it and we're like, how is he going to do this? Okay.
Well, with machinery and experienced labor.
But next time, if you have something like that detail, that really should be included with that.
Sure.
The only other question I have, Dan, and I just noticed it and I didn't realize it when I was looking at the plan, is you're replacing that existing fence and it's actually in the road layout. Have you spoken with the town about replacing that? And if they're going to require you to move that out of the road layout?
No, I haven't.
Is Barnack Road private or is it public road?
Public.
That's public in that area, Jen.
Oh, it is public, yeah. So have either one of you spoken to DPW about whether or not they're going to allow you to reconstruct that fence in the road layout, or if they're going to have you pull that back to that property line?
I have not.
I have not.
Just check with them, please.
Sure.
And I think that's all that I have, unless Kevin Newton has anything to add.
I don't have anything to add on that. Thank you.
All right. Dan, if you're rebuilding that breakwater, are you going to bring it down flush at the driveway for the pedestrian access?
No, we'll have essentially a curb-like rise, at the parking area. So the whole road side of it will be raised perhaps 7 inches, above grade, which will provide kind of a similar condition to what exists, and it'll be flush on the house side, so that you could walk off of it comfortably. But I like the fact that it's up, because that'll keep the cars in their place.
Okay. Maury.
You answered the breakwater thing. I think we should just have the height of the final grade on it, just so it's there.
I'll
And-
also send a detailed grading plan, along, I submitted a planting plan, but I have a grading plan. I'll submit our whole bid set.
Okay, and then the only last thing was, I see where you're stripping out the lawn.
Yeah, well, the lawn is, yes, the lawn was going to be disturbed and, when we take out the pavers along the side yard, and then also by construction activity, staging area and such, I think it just made sense to basically start over rather than to patch it. So we would just strip it and level it with loam as required, and to reestablish it as a Falmouth-friendly lawn.
Okay, because I was thinking if you just stage in the old driveway until you sort of back your way out of the room and use that so that you're not, that's a lot of area. I mean, you're not going to be staging you won't need that much staging, but you're going all the way to Buzzards Bay practically.
Yeah. If the commission, feels that like that's not, or doesn't favor that, or is opposed to, remaking that lawn, I don't think it would be a problem to the applicant to pull in the limit of work.
Yeah, it just looked like a really good Falmouth friendly lawn already. And, to start a new one and seed it and water it and get it established and whatever.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not going to die on that hill, but just if
Yeah.
they don't have to, the least they have to wreck of it, the better. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Very good.
It was a nice plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Pat,
No questions. Thank you.
Peter,
No questions.
Steve, Mr. Patton,
Steve, you're on mute.
No, I don't have any questions, but thank you. And sorry for the delay.
not at all. Betsy,
I think this is going to be a nice project when it's finished too, and I have no questions.
Courtney,
Thank you.
When was the breakwater built? Did this go back? You say it went back to the turn of the previous century. I mean, was this part of the old Pacific Guano Works project?
Courtney, I haven't done any, deep research, on this. What I know is essentially, hearsay, from conversations with Mike McGrath and others they're kind of, I think, speculative. But, one of the interesting things is that you can see on the Holmes McGrath plan, there's essentially a right of way, that traverses the property on the north side of the breakwater.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm speculating is that the Army Corps of Engineers constructed the breakwater back early in the last century as a means to protect the access to Penzance, the new, a newly formed access. I presume it was previously only accessible by maybe a casual seasonal route or a separate island. I don't really know.
Yeah, the Guano Works was right beyond the guardhouse. So that was accessible because that was a big project then. I mean, that's
right. Right.
So what was the function of the breakwater? And does it still have a function today?
I don't really know. They were apparently protecting an access route to drive from the south. There didn't appear to be any attempt to protect that access way from the north. I think it's providing whatever function it still provides, whatever function it provided originally. It's hard to say. I don't know what it was originally, quite honestly.
Yeah, well, and the only reason I say that is if is, by altering it, are you creating an issue that we should be concerned about? That's all. That's
Yeah.
what I'm leading with this.
Well, you know what, we considered options early in this process, maybe 3 or 4 different optional plans. Several of the plans were sort of based upon the removal of the breakwater, as you might expect. An owner might want to do that.
Mhm.
But we sort of reached the conclusion that one, it might be a complicated and lengthy process, to get permission to remove it. And so therefore, we just decided to keep it and work with it.
Okay.
And
So, how much are you altering the elevation of it and the place where you're going to reconstruct it?
well, as you remember from my pictures, it's a little hard to tell what the elevation is of the existing.
Yeah, right.
all-
I mean,
it all-
lowering
it all
it,
de-
raising it. What are you doing?
All depends upon the stone that you're setting your survey rod on, your survey stick. I think it's going.
Where you're doing it.
I think the average elevation that we're creating is going to be similar to the average elevation of what exists.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. No other questions.
All right, Kevin?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
No, Mr. Chairman.
May I make a
All
motion?
right. Yes, you may.
I'm gonna make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Word second.
All right, but we will be looking for the methodology, Dan. for
Yes, I'll
rebuilding of
submit
that
that
wall.
tomorrow. I will
And the
submit that
fence
tomorrow.
needs to be addressed with DPW. All right, so we have a motion and a second to close this hearing. If
One
there's
just-
nothing else,
One quick
Go ahead.
thing, Jamie. Dan and Tim, if you do have discussions with DPW and they do make you move that fence back, please make us aware of that before you just go, because you do have some Rosa rugosa and some bittersweet there that may need to cut back. So please contact the staff and we'll work with you.
Not a problem. Thank you.
anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman, sorry about that.
Not at all. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks Eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
No,
It is unanimous. We have closed the hearing. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
You're-
Timmy,
Put
you
me on,
set for
'cause I have the
tonight?
next one. I have one more right after this.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
All right. Next up are continued hearings under notice of intent. First item, Gerald T. and Margaret T. Robinson, 290 Acapesket Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct and maintain a 3-foot by 60-foot aluminum gangway, a 3-foot by 10-foot timber pier extension, a 3-foot by 14-foot ramp, an 8 by 12-foot T-float and pilings, and for water and utility installation in Green Pond. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Actually, I was just going to address quorum.
So it's everybody who's here except me.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted as well Paul Caruso up, who performed the shellfish survey, and Glenwood, I believe, is representing the applicant as well.
All right. All right, who's gonna, you said Glenn is gonna,
I can start if everybody's ready.
oh, Tim, I'm sorry.
Again, for the record, Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath, representing the applicant. Also with me is Paul Caruso and Glenn Wood. This project, it's located at 290 Acapesket Road, was before you, I think 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago now. It's a proposed pier project. It was continued for mainly for a shellfish mitigation plan, which Paul has prepared and submitted to the staff. And two, we've made two minor revisions to the plan, basically notes on the detail sheet. One showing the dimension from mean high water out to the end of the proposed pier, as well as noting the decking and the spacing on the walkway spanning the shellfish area. So I'll let Paul talk about the mitigation plan, the shellfish mitigation plan, and then the three of us would be happy to address any of the board's concerns.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Caruso.
Good evening. Sorry, looks like you're looking at a talking head here, but Paul Caruso, Cape Coastal Resources, the shellfish consultant for the project. Good evening to the commissioners and staff. As Tim had mentioned.
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me, Jennifer?
Yes, we can hear you. We just can't see you. Is that?
Yeah,
is that...
I don't know why that is.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yep, no problem. So you should have received the shellfish mitigation plan for the applicant. He's agreed to the plan that I've submitted. It's a very simple plan. I based it on the impact of shellfish habitat in Area A, which was non-significant to the interests of the Falmouth wetlands regulations. The project calls for 10 12-inch pilings, which offer a impacted footprint of approximately 8 square feet. Based on the survey that I performed, the productivity of the area is approximately less than 1 cohog per square foot. So what we have offered for the town was a sum of $1,000 to pay for approximately 20,000 cohog seed, which is about 300 to 400 times what the 100-year impact would be to the resource from those pilings. It should also account for any loss in seed from predation, natural causes, any permitting Chuck has to do, handling time, and additional expenses incurred by the town. Be happy to answer any questions from the commission or staff.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wood, do you have anything to add to this? All right, I'm going to take that as no. Jen?
One quick question for Paul. Paul, did you submit the shellfish mitigation plan to Chuck for any review?
I did not personally. I don't know if the project engineers
Do you have
did.
any comments on mitigation for the impact to the soft shell that Chuck was concerned about in his letter?
He had mentioned it. I saw his comment.
Yeah.
The soft shell clam resources there are in the inner parts of Area B, and they wouldn't survive in Area A. There's too much depth there. The sediments aren't proper, and steamers are almost impossible to mitigate for. The seed would have to be covered with XR. Somebody have to take care of it. And like I said, the area that we're impacting with the pilings is not where the soft shells are.
Okay, thank you. I think, Mr. Chairman, there were a couple of small things that I believe have been addressed or clarified regarding the dimensions of the dock and everything else. And I think the missing piece was the shellfish mitigation plan that was required in the regulations. So in order for the commission to evaluate the project as a whole, you did need the mitigation piece to that. So that has been submitted.
All right.
And those are all my comments, unless Kevin has anything to add. Newton.
No
Mr.
comment,
Newton?
Mr. Chairman.
All right. We're going to start with Steve.
Thank you. I think you've brought in the information that we requested, and I'm comfortable with the project now. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Peter.
I agree with Steve.
Excellent. Pat,
No questions, thank you.
Maury,
You mute,
Maury,
Maury.
you're on mute. Is Maury frozen out?
No, she's just on mute. She's trying to figure out how to get off mute.
Oh, all right.
But she said she loved the project.
Yeah.
I heard it.
I read her
No,
lips.
I have no questions. Thank you.
All right. Kevin, O'Brien,
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Courtney.
No questions.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right, folks, what's your pleasure?
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's nothing else. All right. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's eye.
thank you. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the nice warm weather.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Thank
We
you.
did, it's over.
All right, next up, continued request to amend the existing order of conditions. Karen Monroe, 26 Ferry Road, East Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4425 to allow for the driveway to be paved instead of gravel and to install a Cape Cod berm, crushed stone apron, and leaching pit.
IT, can we place Attorney Wood back into the attendees list, please? And Mr. Chairman, I promoted Mike Borselli up to present the project for the applicant.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Mr. Borselli, if you're up and running.
I am,
Ready when
Mr.
you are.
Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. And I represent the applicant. With your permission, I'll share my screen.
Yes, sir.
We submitted a request to amend the order of conditions for a project that is underway and almost done at the property at 26 Ferry. You issued an order of conditions allowing the existing house to be raised and reconstructed. It is pretty much done except for landscaping, mitigation planting, or I should say voluntary native planting, and a few other things. During the construction process, Miss Monroe had inquired as to whether it would be possible to pave her driveway versus having it gravel, because she's experiencing some washouts of the surface, and snow removal is difficult, and it gets a little tricky to gain access from the Ferry Road up to the garage. So the amendment request is simply to request this to be changed to a paved driveway, and in an effort to offset any surface water runoff, we're proposing that the driveway have a Cape Cod berm on this edge, and that it be pitched, and there'd be a paved waterway to a leaching pit located in this location. All these areas are already previously disturbed. There's no clearing proposed. During the review process, the staff had some questions, which is why I had to continue the amendment. And it was related to, there was some, I think, minor changes on the site that weren't reflected on the most recent as-built, and they did have a minor impact on the impervious surface calculation. So I had continued it so that I could address that. For instance, we originally didn't count the pavement here that is in the outer buffer zone B of the coastal bank. The original project plan, which I have here, didn't have that impervious surface, so the calculations didn't reflect it. There was, at the time it was approved, though, a significant decrease in the impervious surfaces in the B zone. If you remember, or maybe you don't remember, the original house, which is shown here in a lighter line weight, was demolished and everything moved back. And there was an opportunity to plant some native plantings to create a buffer where there hadn't been one before. But this project that was approved resulted in a net decrease in the B zone of 179. And at the time, there was a net decrease in the A zone as well. But there were some changes on the property during construction that weren't picked up. And we prepared this exhibit that shows that we picked up additional impervious surface areas. And the new results are that there's a slight increase in A, 6 square feet, but there's still a decrease in B. Keep in mind the applicant had proposed this area, which is 660 square feet of mitigation planting. I should say, at the time it was voluntary, but since there's a slight increase in impervious surfaces now, as is reflected on this plan, that voluntary native planting now, I guess, can also be labeled mitigation for that slight increase. There were some other elements. We got a subsequent staff report. Evidently, we didn't pick up 3 bluestone pavers that are here, and they equal 13 more square feet of impervious surface in the A zone to the salt marsh. And we didn't account for the AC units, which is another 13 square feet of impervious surface in the A zone. So this increase of 6 is now actually 26. And if you apply a factor of 3 to that, it would require just over 60 square feet of mitigation planting. But the original project proposed over 600 square feet of native planting. So I think these minor increases in impervious surface are offset by a significant area of native planting that was proposed. So just in summary, the project really was a request to amend to pave this driveway instead of allowing it to remain as dense grade with crushed stone. And we've controlled the runoff into this drain. So there'll be no surface runoff from the site, from the driveway. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. So are you creating a new precedent where you're going to do mitigation at 10 times?
No.
That's what it looks like.
No. Each case is looked at on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. All right, Ken?
Jamie, I just got a text from Jen. It looks like her computer froze.
Okay.
Yeah. She's not in the meeting, it looks like. So give me 1 second to try to get her. in the meantime, I don't believe there's anything that staff was really concerned about with this, but I'll just confirm with Jen.
Okay, so I'll come back to you, Kevin, then. Betsy, I'll start with you for commission comments.
I have no comments. Thanks, Jamie.
All right, Courtney,
No questions.
Kevin,
No questions.
Maury,
No questions.
Pat,
No questions.
Peter,
No
Peter,
questions.
oh, there you go. Steve,
No questions, thank you.
all right. I'm gonna see if there's any chat.
Mr.
There's
Chairman,
nothing that
I just spoke with Jen.
Okay.
And her only comment was she wanted to make sure that Mike addresses the stones that he missed in the AC units on a new plan.
I have all the numbers and calculations, so I can submit a plan that memorializes those changes
There she is right
before
there.
you would issue the order.
All right, please do that.
Mr. Chairman, I'm back. Sorry about that. I have no idea what just
Excellent.
happened.
All right.
So I'll make a
All in
motion.
all, we've done pretty well. We haven't had any real big glitches, so. All right, Jen, do you have anything to add?
Just, I wanted to make sure that the stepping stones in the air conditioner unit
Yes.
and the mitigation was addressed.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
Why do you even need me? I can just go.
You
We're
left
humoring
Kevin
you.
in a hot seat.
Somebody has to check the chat function.
There's no chat, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just wanted you to feel needed. All right. With no further ado, we have a motion and a second to close this hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed the hearing. Thank you, Mr. Maselli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commission. See you next time.
Good night, Mike.
You will, like it or not.
Night, Mike.
Good night.
Next up, continued hearings under an enforcement order. Andrew L. and Lindsay B. Doherty, 11 East Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of vegetation within conservation jurisdiction. Jen?
Mr. Chairman, I lost the ability to promote the Doherty. So IT, could you please promote Lindsay and Andrew Doherty up as panelists? I lost that function when I had my computer. Oh, no, they just gave me that function back. Hello, Ms. Doherty.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. So, Mr. Chairman, the last time we met with the Dohertys, the staff had received a complaint about some cutting of trees on the property at East Ave. There was a wetland area across the road. So at that point, we didn't have a survey. So it was really important to get a survey for the Dohertys to understand where the commission's jurisdiction was. And so we could tell, what, where in that zone A to that wetland, what, if that was disturbed and what the extent of that disturbance was in either the zone A or the zone B. So if, Mr. Chairman, I can share my screen, I can show you the plan that was submitted to the commission by John Doyle, and you can see where the zone A and zone B are, and then that way the commission will be able to talk about what type of restoration you would like.
If you are unable to share your screen because of the technical issues, I have it on my computer as well, ready to share. So
okay, thank you. I'm hoping I was just flipping around. Does everyone see that? Okay.
Yes.
So obviously the wetland edge is over here. The area of disturbance was right here. It is outside the 50-foot buffer to that wetland area. It's in that zone B of the wetland. So that's good. There is, the flood zone goes right here. So this technically is considered a bank area. So obviously it would be within the zone A of that coastal bank. So I'm just showing the board where that disturbance occurred. And Ms. Doherty, I'm sorry, do you know how many trees were removed? I can't remember off the top of my head. Does the board want me to keep this plan up, or can I stop sharing?
Actually, could you keep it up for one quick second? So I believe in the end, he only cut down 10 trees. We had asked for 12, but if you can see down towards the bottom of the plan, there are still 2 existing trees. And we had actually discussed this at the last meeting. We had wanted those trees removed because they're entangled in the electrical power lines that run the length of the street. And so I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to those 2 trees, because if there still is a way for us to deal with those 2 trees with your permission, then we would like to try to do so, just because we foresee potential problems down the road with those 2 trees and any kind of storm situation.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want
Jen,
me
I
to
think you can
stop
stop
sharing?
sharing. Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
please.
I mean, I
Those
think
2
that,
trees close to the road were entangling wires, correct?
Yes.
yes. And I believe we had said at the last meeting that we would work with the Dohertys to kind of alleviate the threat of that, bringing those wires down. And Kevin, you've been out on the site. That's correct, right? They're in the power lines.
Yeah, and that's, I assume that's the reason why, Grant Tree left them there.
Yeah. So the board can discuss what you would like for mitigation. It might be helpful to understand what the Doherty's goals were when doing this work. If you don't mind telling us what you were kind of envisioning, or what your goals were when you started this project, so the board can get an idea and then possibly factor that into any mitigation they may require.
Oh, thank you. So we didn't really have a grand plan. It was the trees we were just a little concerned about them, given their age and their general health. My parents actually ironically gave it to us as a Christmas gift to have the trees removed, but no good deed goes unpunished. So basically we don't know. We were just envisioning some more grass for our children to play. We really don't have some big scheme or anything as of now. So that's basically it. It's just some trees, not some trees, some grass. Andy, do you want to say anything else?
Mr. Doherty, you're on mute.
Okay, yeah, basically, yes, just an open area for our children to play. Just planting some grass.
Maybe put an inflatable pool or something for the summer. I mean, that was kind of the extent of the plan.
Yeah, we're gonna try to bring up, this is what happened the last time, why I froze. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to share my screen one more time to give the board. And Kevin, tell me if I'm on the wrong pictures. Is that the pictures you took, Kevin?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. So I think this was the area.
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Doherty, would you want like possibly like screening over in this area. So if we had you replace some of these trees with, let's say, some cedar trees along the edge that you possibly could have some grass, because we understand this is kind of your front yard area. But we do need some of those trees replaced with some sort of vegetation, but it could be a nice screening from the property owner over there. Would that be?
Yeah, so we've actually already planted 5 new arborvitaes along the side of the property line. We planted those last summer. So I don't know if that is an option or not, but those do tend to have a lot of natural screening. And it would just continue kind of the natural screening that we have already been planting.
The board really doesn't, I mean, they can discuss it. They usually prefer screening with cedars.
Okay.
It offers more of a wildlife habitat value for the property, but I can let the board discuss.
Sure.
So that's basically it, Mr. Chairman. We were really, we really needed the survey in order to start this process, because we really needed to see where those buffer zones were.
Have the other 2 trees been addressed?
No, I don't believe so.
No.
Is there a plan to address them? An intention?
On our behalf, you mean? We would like to, if that's possible. During the last meeting, we had explained that we had tried to go to the town for it. We had tried to go to the power company, and they kept kicking us back and forth to one to the other, and wouldn't take them down because of various rules and regulations, which is what led us to Grant Tree. So I don't know if it's possible to still cut them down at this point with your permission or not, but it would be probably helpful long-term to have them taken down.
Mr. Chairman, I have a pretty good picture of them if you want me to share it real quick, so you understand what you're talking about.
If anybody else does, I went by there. I've seen it. My question is, if they want to take them down, is that something we're going to address in this enforcement hearing? Would it become an RDA? Would it become a notice? Regardless of who's going to do it.
We could address it however the board would like to address it. We could, administratively approve them to take the trees down. We could, wrap it into this filing so it's all neatly packaged into one, and they don't have all this conservation paperwork running around. I think any restoration can be done through the enforcement order. So we could easily put that the 2 trees at the edge of the road that are within the power lines are to be removed. It's easy enough.
Yeah, not to say we're going to force their hand to remove them, just that if the owners choose to,
yeah,
we've already discussed it. That's all.
Correct.
And then if the owners hire somebody else to do the work, then the approval's already in place. Okay, I don't have a lot of pictures, so I'm just going to poll everyone for comments. Betsy?
Well, I think given that those trees are a potential hazard in storms, you definitely, as long as they're doing the work. And then I can't quite envision where you put the arborvitaes, but I think there should be some additional sort of native vegetation for wildlife habitat, but it could be, along the edge, and maybe even shrubs underneath where those trees, you're removing those trees.
Mm-hmm. That's the arborvitaes are along the property line that is closest to where we cut down the trees. They're farther up the property. You can't see them from the angles of the pictures.
Yeah, so there's still room along the property line.
Yeah.
Between your property and your neighbors there.
Yes. Yep.
Where there could be. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have, Jamie.
Thank you.
I think I have a good
Cool.
picture of them. They're not very high, are they, Ms. Doherty?
Well, they're a lot cheaper when you buy them small.
No, I understand that. I'm just, I was looking, I was envisioning like these big ones, so I do
No.
see where they are.
No, no, sorry. No,
They get
like I
big
said,
quick.
we just planted them in this past year, so they're
Yeah,
still
no.
very young.
That's what mine look like too, so
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, I mean, we can, I mean, obviously, we hate to this, we'll probably, I mean, we could either close this and issue the enforcement order, Mr. Chairman, or you can give Kevin and I, now that we have the plan, we can kind of work with them on a planting scheme, work with them to get the screening, put some native shrubs, near the arborvitaes and then the cedars, plant some shrubs along the road and then kind of wrap that around so they can have a grass area in their yard. I'm not opposed to that at all.
No, and I'd agree with that. All right. Courtney,
Yeah, I'm substantially in agreement with all of the suggestions that are being made here. And my biggest concern, frankly, is about these trees and the power lines and the kind of jurisdictional back and forth between the town and the power company as to who should do what to whom and when. And I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I do know the town will not send their tree crews in to cut trees within, I think it's 15 feet of a power line. And they say that's the jurisdiction of the power company. So I would probably focus, I'm speaking to the Dohertys here, I would focus most of your attention on Eversource and getting them to come out, because they're the ones that are responsible for making sure the power works. And if a storm comes and the trees come down and tear the power lines down, not only is it a danger to you, but it also interrupts power. So I would go to them and not let them tell you that it's the town's responsibility. And a lot of things can be said for Grant Tree, but he's correct. He's not going to go near power lines for the same reason.
but there are private
Really
companies that will do
Eversource
that as long as
yeah.
permission has been obtained. And also, if I could, Courtney, to the Dohertys, I would also suggest, and I hope I'm not out of line here, is if you call Eversource, ask to speak with Paul Sellers. He's the resident arborist. So if he doesn't personally deal with it, I think he would be able to tell you what direction to go where Eversource is concerned.
Right. And Paul used to be in the business in Falmouth, so you have an ally there.
Do you happen to know the easiest way to get in touch with him? Do I just call Eversource and just try to get him, or do you have a direct contact for him?
You should probably call Eversource, but he lives in town.
Okay.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go the private route. I mean, that's not fair to him, but I would call Eversource and just ask for their directory.
Okay.
I don't think you'd have any issue with that. All right, I want to continue with comments. Kevin?
No comments. I think we're headed in the right direction.
Sounds like it. Maury?
Yeah, I think that they're doing what I would do. You want room for your kids, and I'm sure they didn't even notice that wetland was across the street. And I think that they've got a good plan going with Jen. That's all. Thank you.
All right, Pat?
No comments, thanks.
Peter?
I agree with Maury.
Excellent. Steve?
So do I. I like this kinder, softer Maury.
All right, so Jen, we'll be looking for a motion in a second to issue the enforcement order, and the Dohertys would work with staff on a planting plan. Is that pretty
Yes,
much it.
correct. And what I don't want to catch the Dohertys off guard, but we'll work with you on, lengthening that kind of arborvitae line with more native cedars, putting like a staggered shrub layer in front of that to give a little bit more wildlife habitat, and then wrapping that around to the front where your little stone wall is. Maybe get you some color in there with some more colorful natives in there, and then the establishment of a lawn in the middle part of that. Would that sound acceptable? I know you
Yes,
really
yeah.
both caught very off guard by this, so we're doing,
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate the understanding from everybody on the commission, and we've obviously learned a lot through this process, and I guess that's what life is all about sometimes.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to issue the enforcement order.
I'll second it.
All right. So as discussed, we have a motion and a second to issue the enforcement order.
And just
That's it.
one thing, Mr. Chairman, just to the Dohertys, we can explain, we'll probably give you, we'll have you submit a plan. We can work with you and John, we can meet on Zoom, develop a plan, and you'll have kind of a deadline to implement the plan. We'll include the removal of the trees if you want to remove the trees and the power lines. And then there'll probably be a monitoring report where you just have to send us a monitoring report every year, letting us know that everything's growing and is happy and surviving.
And
Okay.
Is it safe to assume that the deadline would not be looming due to the fact that it's not a good time to plant, right? It would.
Oh, no. We're going to make sure, no, we're not going to have you plant like next week. No,
Okay,
it'll be in a proper planting time of year. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
But all right. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an enforcement order. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Doherty.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next up, our vote order of conditions. First up, Lucius and Wendy Hill, 0 Nashawena Street, Assessor's Map 24-20, parcel/lot 001-000, Falmouth, Mass. And the quorum is everyone but Maury.
I recuse.
This is let me grab it here. This is
the walkway over the salt
lengthening
marsh?
of lengthening, putting that little walkway over an area of kind of mowed salt marsh, historically mowed salt marsh. It's kind of like a ramp and walkway to kind of lengthen that dock landward. So I know that Mike had submitted a revised plan that showed a gap between the existing ramp and float and the walkway to try to differentiate between the two. But it is staff's opinion that we still consider this an expansion of the dock in a velocity zone, and therefore is prohibited by the regulations. In addition, there was a kind of a recommended planting plan underneath the boardwalk to try to regenerate part of that salt marsh. I think that pretty much sums it up, Mr. Chairman. Unless I'm missing anything, Kevin? O'Brien, Newton?
Yeah, I believe you hit the main points that we had.
Yeah, and salt marsh plugs, 100 Spartina Peyton. And the other species that I cannot pronounce to enhance the salt marsh after the walkway installation. But again, I mean, you pretty much go to your staff report and we have our staff comments. And why. Go.
Anybody have anything they want to throw in there?
Yes.
Peter?
I read through the regulations, and some of the regulations have a different slant than we discussed before in 1038 and velocity zones and proposed projects. And it is the presumption is that the project will be detrimental to the ecology, and there are some passages here that says that the applicant can overcome the presumptions. And I think Mike overcame my presumptions and let's see, notwithstanding the provisions of Falmouth Wetland Regulations 1038-4A through D, the commission may permit the following activities provided that the applicant demonstrates to the satisfaction of the commission that the best available measures are utilized to minimize adverse effects on all critical characteristics of land to coastal storm flowage as provided that all the performance standards are met. The overall impression that I have is that the applicant has done all things possible to minimize any adverse effects. And by planting the plugs for the salt marsh and not using the pathway to the dock, which has been tramped down through the years, it will be a better environment because the salt marsh will fill in instead of having the gravel wash out. So my comment is that it would be better for Falmouth to have the project than not, and the regulations seem to permit it. That's my comment.
All right. Anybody else have anything?
I mean, you're looking at one regulation, dock regulations, which is a dock. I mean, you know, you can look at that regulation. Also, you have, a recent case where, you know, a walkway was not permitted in a velocity zone. And also that, the board needs to determine whether or not this is an extension of the existing dock. Regardless of the land subject to coastal storm flowage regs, you also have to comply with your dock regulations as well. So, I mean, you can agree with, you have to make findings on both. You have to address 10.16 and you have to address 10.38.
Wasn't that what Mr. Borselli tried to do with the separation? as meager as that separation may have been.
Yeah.
Yes, that was his
Yeah.
attempt,
Tried to
yeah.
do. I'm going to make the same comment I made at the last hearing, which is that I'm very sympathetic, and I agree with Peter that in fact it would be better to have that marsh come back. But I think this could lead down to a very slippery slope in other dock or Kevin dock / walkway. Use that to get past the issue.
I'll make a question.
Yep.
So I understand where you're coming from, Betsy, and one thing we want to avoid is the slippery slopes. So the question is to reduce how slippery the slope is, can we craft the findings in such a way that it makes somebody else can't use the same argument in another situation?
Well, that's what Mike tried to do. He tried to separate it into a dock and a walkway, but in fact, it is an extension of a dock in the velocity zone. And, it would be very difficult. I mean, this is an old dock, but it would be very difficult to permit a dock in the velocity zone by today's standards.
So what are their alternatives?
Keep trampling the salt marsh.
Yep.
So is that a case of cutting your nose off to spite your face?
Mm-hmm.
That's a concern I have.
All right.
Pat has something, Jamie.
Yep. Pat?
I think one of the things is that there's a subtle difference between rebutting presumptions and balancing the equities. With all due respect, I think the discussion towards allowing this is balancing equities. Is this going to improve the situation? That's not what the regulations say. It says, do you rebut the presumption of significance of these various resource areas? And I didn't hear anything put into the record to say the resources down there were not valued and that the applicant had rebutted the presumption of significance. It's very subtle, but when you talk about the presumptions of significance in these regulations, it's about the value of the salt marsh. It's about the value of the in the velocity zone. I'd have to go back in and read what they talk to you about. It has storage of waters and prevention of damage. One of the clear reasons that all new structures are prohibited in the velocity zone is because the damage that is done to the other underlying resource areas when structures are ripped up and thrown into, say, the salt marsh.
The path, just to the path, I mean, that path has over the years been enlarged. So, I mean, the applicant does need to stop mowing and trampling the salt marsh to such a degree, because over the past years it has that disturbance has increased. So because the board shouldn't get into kind of rewarding the bad behavior. So just because they've been trampling the marsh and that area has increased over the years, now all of a sudden we're going to do a great thing, put this walkway and we'll stop trampling the marsh. Well, they should be very careful going through that marsh to get to the existing dock, and the existing path, I mean, should be about 4 or so feet wide down there, not the 10 or so. I'd have to measure it out. I'd have to get my scale. and that's kind of impossible to find right now. Kind of that 10-foot, maybe even 12-foot wide area that is being disturbed. That shouldn't be happening.
I don't know if I was being clear enough in what I was trying to explain in terms of balancing of equities. That's where I've heard the commission say on many occasions, you're going down a slippery slope because you're not looking at the regulations. You're superimposing your value system by balancing equities rather than looking at the strict language of the regulations. I mean, I don't disagree that, lifting something up off of the marsh is probably a good thing, but that's not part of the regulatory process as I understand it, in terms of allowing that structure in the V zone. And like Jen was saying, rewarding bad behavior.
All right. Anybody else have anything?
Do you want a motion to be put on the table?
I believe we do.
Okay, I'll put a motion to accept the proposal as stated.
Walsh, second.
Is Maureen the quorum?
No, she's not.
Okay.
You are.
So if I
No,
understand,
she's missing. That's why I was asking.
sorry?
She's missing. She's left, and I wanted to make sure she'd be here for the vote if she's the quorum.
On the form. All right, so the motion is to issue an order of conditions. Is that correct, Betsy?
That's correct, Jamie.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Jen, do you have anything else?
Nope. I'll just remember you always put a positive motion on the floor. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, this motion is to issue an order of conditions.
Mhm.
So, Betsy,
No.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, no. Kevin,
No,
Pat,
Harris, no.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Pat and I.
all right, it is 4-3, so the order is denied.
Motion did not carry.
The motion does not carry. Semantics.
Okay.
All right, next up, Melissa McKim,
why do I
trust.
feel so bad?
Melissa McKim, trustee, Nina's Marina Realty Trust, 306 Scranton Ave, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, let me just get to that one. That's the bulkhead replacement, the stormwater. Replacement of the bulkhead, the stormwater, was it the stormwater trench over the top? The replacement of the, not the replacement of the replanting of the mitigation area, the previously permitted mitigation area. And remember, they are heightening raising the height of the wall. I believe it's by 2 feet. Is that what it was? Kevin Newton, I think.
And it's raising the height of a couple of pilings.
Yeah, raising the height of the pilings and raising the height of the bulkhead itself.
I can't say for sure about that 2 feet.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Yeah. I know they were raising the height of it near the mitigation plantings because they were going to try to protect those mitigation plantings because they said they kept dying because of the salt overwash or the saltwater overwash. So, I mean, we can craft this just like every other bulkhead project along Inner Harbor. I think the biggest concern, I think, was Maury, you had the concern about the discharge into Falmouth Inner Harbor, and Mike went through his kind of layered kind of treatment that the stormwater was going to go through before it hit the pipe to go into the harbor. And I think we want to see the boom on the plan. We got a maintenance schedule. We clarified the the planting area. And then we also do need to put a note in to stop trimming the height of the mitigation plantings to a nice uniform 3 feet because nature just does not grow like that.
That be made into a special condition where they, they need to request a Vista prune permit for that.
Well, Vista prune is also just a 25-foot window, so I don't want to give the impression that the entire area of mitigation planting, which wraps around the whole property, would be subject to that Vista pruning, Kevin.
Okay.
Good call, but I think we're going down like, you just say stop cutting.
Sure.
Correct.
If they want a Vista prune, they can come back for an RDA.
And they can have their 25-foot window.
Yeah. I have a question, Jen, and maybe Maury, you might know. Would either of you recommend, are there certain plants that can take, obviously there are plants that live right by the ocean that get storm overwash occasionally. I'm just thinking to recommend, they say, well, the plants die. Well, certain kinds of plants are going to die when you get that, salt overwash, but there are plants that don't mind, that
the salt spray.
Yeah. Or even more than salt spray. Even if they build it up, they still could potentially have overwash in a storm. I'm just throwing this out. If there are any species that are particularly tolerant to that.
I hate to sound sacrilegious, but Rosa rugosa does very well in that kind of environment. There's a dune down on Wood Neck Beach. It gets overwashed all the time. It's all Rosa rugosa, and it's been there for as long as I've lived here. So, sometimes we need to look at plants like that.
We can offer them some additional choices, Betsy, besides what they have listed, and we can put it in the order that it could be other salt tolerant shrub species.
What would be helpful there, if they would plant Ammophila with interplanting of woody indigenous so that.
Yeah, to kind of like make edge. Yeah.
I mean, in nature, that's what you see. You see the woody indigenous growing up through the dunes that are overwashed all the time.
Right. I'm thinking like if you go down to the end of Little Island Road.
Yeah.
And, the high tides come in, but there's a lot of woody indigenous that are there.
Well, and don't forget, most of those plants seeded themselves there, and they're native. When we say native plantings, indigenous, most of them are grown in nurseries, and they're just, they're not as hardy.
They're not hardy.
And actually, the larger we ask them to plant, the harder it is for them to establish. Smaller ones do better than, 3 to 5 gallon are more susceptible to damage than, 1 to 2 gallon. Just because they can't adapt in time. You have a lot of.
Especially there because they're going to get hit
hard.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Jen, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else?
Anything on the stormwater?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna die on that hill, but I just think that it's a really bad precedent to allow water to be supposedly treated going through sand that's in a rubber membrane. When we get, biblical rainstorms and that all that water sheets off that property and goes into that trench drain, you guys tell me, how much treatment do you really think it's getting? I don't think it's going to get very much. And we all know people fertilize, they use Roundup on their walkways, and, just stuff runs off. I just don't understand. Everybody else puts dry wells in, and, he says that the ground there was hard. All he had to do is go further up where he could find, the soil that he could have percolate. But like I say, I'm not going to die on that hill, but it's just a bad precedent that if everybody starts saying they're going to put trench drains in direct discharge, we're crawling around trying to find a pipe like Tom Corvo that's direct discharging, eliminating them. So I just don't know why here we are, we're going to let them do it. But other than that, that's the only thing. And in the time of year restriction, I'm not sure if there's one in Falmouth Harbor, but I think there is for winter flounder.
We'll look at time of year restrictions. If there is one, we will add it. I thought I just saw that. They are not giving me a time of year restriction on this.
Huh.
To protect.
Isn't that weird, because we did that one on Clinton, the old regatta, that was a time of year.
It might be worth reaching out, Jen, because they failed to provide the time of year restriction advisement on a separate project like a month ago. Remember that? I can't recall the exact project, but there should have been a time of year, and they didn't recommend it.
That's also a diatremous fish run.
Yeah. Well, we'll just put a time of year on it. We know when the winter flounder are. And
okay, I can reach out.
Peter has something to say.
Yes. We discussed a little bit about no refueling on site. That would be one of the conditions, right?
mm-hmm. Yes, you're right, Peter.
Yep.
Don't these people in Inner Harbor, don't they need to get a special permit from the fire department for refueling?
Peter, do you mean refueling the boat or refueling the construction equipment?
The equipment, I think we were talking about.
Yeah, the construction equipment, yeah.
That's what I thought, yeah. Okay. And Betsy, to answer your question, I don't know, I've seen fuel trucks down in the Inner Harbor for boats multiple times, but I don't know if they have to contact the fire department or not.
Well, I had a conversation years ago with Paul Broder, who was the fire chief, and he said he was riding his bike by Inner Harbor, and he took down the addresses, and he had to contact the people who did not have the proper permits.
All right, how do we address the dry wells? Can we address the dry wells?
The board tried to push back on the stormwater design. You can just say the stormwater design, as proposed is not acceptable. There's direct discharge into Falmouth Inner Harbor, and to redesign it, and they will have to come back, or that they have to pipe everything into a dry well closer to the street. I don't know how you want me to write it.
Don't we always just say all roof runoff must be contained?
Yep, we can just say, there is no direct discharge into Falmouth Inner Harbor. No discharge into Falmouth Inner Harbor, and that everything needs to be
contained into a dry well.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
they make shallow ones. I mean, they don't have to be 7 feet
Can I
deep.
say something? I think we need to address the question that the design of the dry wells, the capacity is adequate to handle, the stormwater runoff, maximum load, whatever that criteria is. And there should also be a provision that the dry wells be maintained. So they continue to leach, because as
Okay.
anybody knows, dry wells will get clogged up and then they don't function and you're back to square one. And basically then, if not maintained, it's just gonna end up running back in the harbor untreated.
Does this mean that the landowner needs to come back with a plan for the dry wells that would be approved by the commission at a later date?
I mean,
Do it.
if you want the staff to review it, we can, and we can have the
Okay.
engineering department look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, staff or engineering or both.
Okay.
And that would have to be approved before the work started.
Okay.
All right, anybody have anything else?
I'll move to accept the order as discussed.
Or issue the order.
Yeah, or issue the order.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue the order of conditions as discussed. If there's nothing else, I'm going to take the vote. Betsy,
Aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve. Aye. It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Next up, Lynn Riley, 0 Gale Avenue, Assessor's Map 40-12, parcel/lot 040-000, East Falmouth, Mass.
This was the construction of the house. We're pretty much holding every buffer, fairly large lot, fairly modest size house. All the trees, we had some concerns with, there was outside of the buffer jurisdiction, but some of the trees, like quite a few trees being removed because they're doing the whole passive house. They wanted it for the solar energy, but none of the real trees in the buffer zone, I believe. Excuse me, it's to the salt marsh and possibly bank. Mr. Borselli put the trees on right along that limit of work, so we know that none of them are going to come down, and I think that was the staff's only concern. Oh, and he didn't have a path on the plan to get to the water, and that will have to be done either under an amendment or come back to us to approve that somehow, as well as any sort of vista pruning they may want.
All right. Anybody have anything they want on there?
No, but I just want to say that Kevin and Steve are not on this quorum.
Correct.
For this great East Falmouth project.
Hey, what can I say?
And I'll make a motion to issue an order as discussed.
Carla Hawk, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue the order of conditions. If there's nothing else, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Dana Roden, Quistit Harbor Preservation Trust, 48 Quistit Harbor Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is this is the knob. They're doing the revetment repairs in 2 large sections of the revetment. And on the Quistit Harbor side, they're doing a fiber roll array to try to stop some of the erosion over by one of the staircases that goes down closest to where the revetment is. They're just lengthening that by, 40 feet, I think it was. Let's see, that's 40 feet east, north. Kind of disoriented.
South.
Right now. I'm not south,
Would be
No.
southeast, wasn't it?
southeast.
Southeast. yeah.
Oh yeah, Buzzards Bay. Got it. Sorry, I don't have the plan open, so I'm like trying to do it.
Quistit Boatyard.
Quistit Boatyard, towards Quistit Boatyard. They've already done a nice job on some of it, and they're just gonna lengthen that because there is some big scarp and it is scouring out there. So they're gonna try to slow that down. So it's just an extension of something we've already permitted.
Same conditions.
Correct. Same
some more.
conditions, same contractor, everything.
All right. Anybody have anything else they want in there?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions.
Bird second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. If there's nothing else. All right, Betsy,
All right, Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Last up, nothing.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. IT, if you would stop recording. Thank you, everyone.
Good evening,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.